Okay, welcome back. We are going to now start talking about some of the different tools in Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to create a new document. We've got it 15 by 10 inches wide. Resolution is 72 dots per inch or pixels per inch. Right now our color mode is bitmap, which means it's either black or white. Here we've got grayscale, so 256 shades of gray. RGB, so red, green, and blue is the digital or visible color spectrum. CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, that's the print color spectrum. In fact, if you look on the color comics and newspaper, you'll see sometimes little pink dots or little light blue dots or yellow. That's CMYK. That's how they create a sense of color. We're going to make this RGB. Don't worry about the rest of this right now. Background contents, we'll just make white and hit OK. Now I'm going to hit my F key, that's my framing key. What that will do is it will get your whole image in there. You can change through that so that you can see multiple windows and stuff like that. When I've been working in Photoshop, I usually like to just hit that F key so that I have that with me. I'm also going to hit my Tab key so that I can see the different palettes that I have available. And I'm going to get rid of a few of these right away because we've got too many here to view. It's just like Illustrator, you're going to click on those palettes and get rid of them. All I want right now are a couple of, there are just a few palettes that I want to see. First of all, my options palette, which is right here. Every tool that I use has certain options, and that's this palette right here. And this is our program palette. Don't worry about this right now, but I am going to go to my window, to tools. Okay, and I've got to separate layers from this. I got to take that and get rid of that layer, or get rid of that palette right now. So I've got two sets of tools. Now, you can, if you double click, if you click on the top bar, it will bring it back, and it will bring it across like that. I'm going to have them right next to each other. It will make it a little easier for you to see. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is identify some of the tools, and this is in your syllabus, but we're going to do it anyway. These tools right here, all of these, are a selection tools, okay? And we'll call them our image tools. So they deal with either selecting things or with the actual image that you're using. And we'll explain more a little bit about those in a moment. These are your art tools or drawing tools. They allow you to draw and to change the shapes and to change the images and stuff like that there. These are your vector tools. In this case, these are things like Illustrator. We see those paths, and we've seen those a lot. Those will be very, very useful when we start working here in Photoshop to be able to make it work better and to be able to control it. Our type is also vector. This arrow, we've seen that, and we see little triangles at the base of that. That means they're additional tools. In this case, we've got the regular selection and the direct selection tool. Okay, and then our line and shape tools are right here. Now I want you to notice something. Look at your, right across here, this is your options palette. Go to Window, Options, you'll be able to see. You'll notice right here that every time I select on a different tool, look across the top at that options palette. That's going to change and give us different options that are available in each one of these things. Okay? Finally, the last tool that we're going to be working on, or the last section here, these are your navigation tools right here. These tools help you see your image better, view it, change location, stuff like this. This represents your foreground color, or the color that you are drawing with or painting in. If I click on that, I can change my color, and it will change what I use. This is my background color right here. If I erase, it will erase to whatever that color is. In fact, if I change that, we'll change that to that dark red, and I come in here and erase, it's going to erase to that color. Okay, now it will erase to that color. Get this, and draw. It will draw that new color. This is my drawing color. This is my background color. This resets it with your default colors, so black with white in the background. And this toggles those colors back and forth, so no matter what color this is, you'll always toggle it back and forth. Now the quick key for that is the X key. If you just hit the X, it will do that. Don't worry about this tool right now. That's not going to be that important. Okay? Now I'm going to erase all of this. Whoops, better get my main colors back here. Let's erase all of this. And if you want to, stop and kind of experiment with some of these things on your own. Now, let's talk a little bit about these tools. Well, first we're going to go to the Art tools, and some of these are going to be really useful and some are not. The tools specifically that I want to use, and let me get red too so it's easier to see, we're going to deal with this tool, drawing tool, the clone tool, the eraser tool, the blur, and some of those tools that are here. We'll do the gradient tool a little bit later, and then the dodge and burn tools right here. We're not going to worry about our mending tool or any of the art history tools or things like that. Those aren't important. When we come here, we'll talk about all these tools here, but these ones are the ones that are really important. And we're going to start to try to understand them. First of all, let's go to our brush tool. This is our primary drawing tool. Now you'll notice that across the top, it gives us a series of options. We've got, first it tells us what tool we are, and then it gives us a size. I can click on this, and we can increase the size or decrease the size by grabbing that slider. If I come here and click and drag, you'll see how soft that is. I can increase the hardness by dragging there and make that harder. Now if we zoom in close, we can see the difference. How we've got this nice soft feathered edge here. Here we have a little bit of a feather, but not a whole lot. So it's going to give us a little bit harder edge on there. Now, there's some secrets here. This is just going to keep your size. These are different brushes, and you can go through and experiment with them. Some are a real waste of time. Others can be really useful if we're dealing with just variations in texture and stuff like that. There are some brushes that are really useful. So you can go through and experiment with those later. Okay? Right now, the mode is normal, and you're going to typically keep it in normal. And your opacity, my opacity is 50%. I can change that to 100%, or I can drop that all the way down to 11% or 1% or whatever. And then as I draw over the top, it's going to get a little darker and a little bit darker. Okay? Now there's some quick keys to this. First of all, if I hit the 1 on my keyboard, notice that it goes to 10% opacity. If I hit the 2, it goes to 20. If I hit the 3, it goes to 30, 4, 5, 6, and so on, up to 0, which is 100. If I hit something very quickly, like the 2 and 5, one right after the other, it'll go 25%. So that's a quick way to go in and change the opacity in that. A quick way to change the size is by hitting the right bracket on your keyboard. That will make it larger. The left bracket will make it smaller. And so you can keep decreasing the size of that brush over and over. And you can make it darker, or you can make it lighter just by hitting the proper tools on your keyboard. Okay? So that's important. Don't worry about flow right now. Alright, now there's some other choices on here. The brush tool and then the pencil tool. Now I'm going to compare the brush tool and the pencil tool really fast. Where the brush tool has sort of this soft feathered edge, whether it's the really, really soft feathering or it's kind of this rough edge on here, the pen tool, or the pencil tool, excuse me, doesn't give us that. Here, we'll draw it right there. You can see this really hard line going along there. That's alias. There is no edge to that at all. We've got there's no soft edge to that. It just gives us this hard edge. I rarely use the pencil tool. It's probably a tool you won't use very often, so don't worry about it right now. Now, the eraser tool, let's go on down to the eraser tool. We're going to move this back over here so we can see what we're talking about. Let's see. Hope I got to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. The eraser tool will allow us to erase. Now it can erase 100%. It can erase 50%. You can erase lower, less and less. You can also change the size of the thickness on it. You can make it wider so it erases a lot more, like that. Or you can make it smaller so it's going to erase a lot less. And we can make that smaller, like that. Okay? So that's one of the things you can do with the eraser. Now it gives you a number of choices. You've got the brush, the pencil, which is going to give us that really hard edge. And then we've also got one option called the block. Now all of these, the brush and the pencil, are both dynamic. The block is not. The block is static. In other words, what's going to happen is if I click, it's just going to erase an area that's the size of that block. If I zoom in really close, it's going to erase it pixel by pixel. If I zoom out, so you can see how it's changed it. Let's get our area here and see those little tiny areas that it deleted. We can zoom out like this, and now we can take that and erase that whole big section like that. Okay? So that's one of the advantages that we have with the block tool. It gives us some different, or with the eraser, it gives us some different options as far as being able to move or erase certain things. The blur tool allows us, the little water droplet, allows us to go around and make things a little softer. And it also has some other tools with it. It has a sharpen tool, which won't necessarily get us back to where we are, because what it's done, what's happened, let's go back and see what happens here. We go to our blur tool, and if I push option, I can click through these tools. If I go to my blur tool and blur that, it's changing the nature of all of those pixels. If I try to sharpen it, it's not going to restore those back to where it was. It's just saying, oh, here's a pixel here, here's a pixel here. I'm going to find an absolute threshold there and do that. So it's not going to necessarily get us back to where we are, but it will sharpen things up just a little bit by taking a little less of the change of that soft change. It will reduce our values or reduce the contrast in there so it seems a little sharper. And finally, you've got the smudge tool, which will allow you to click and drag color. Now notice that I can change my brushes on this. Right now I've got a textured brush. I can get a soft brush like that. Okay. The harder the strength, the longer or the more it will drag that around. Here it's 100. I'll bring this down to 20, and it's just going to drag it a little bit at a time, and it's not going to give me much smudging. Okay, that's our smudge tool. Now, to see some of these other tools, we're going to work on them a little bit later, but we're also going to grab some other section or something else and work on it. So I'm going to close this, and we're going to come to a new photo